Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Mr. Denton, Ms. Kelly.
Yes. The next item on the agenda is the moment of silence to be led by the Board Vice President.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Gwen Cowan, an 8th grade student at Oneida Ridge Middle School.
Please stand. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, I'm going to talk a little bit about Oneida Ridge, and one thing I like is that we have a thing called Tiger Time in the morning, and it's just 25 minutes or like 25, 30, and on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday we get to sign up for just extra little fun classes and stuff. So I have like PE games on Tuesdays, and it's really fun, and it also gives the Student Council and NJHS opportunities to have their meetings instead of before school. And I really like the 6th-hour athletics. I'm on the 8th grade volleyball team, and it's just fun to be able to go on after 5th hour, and you're just really relieved from all the school and stuff, and it gets you prepared for high school and stuff. So that's pretty much it.
All right. Do you mind if we take a picture with you?
No.
If you'll stand right here, we'll. Great job. Oh, you're tall.
Next item on the agenda is the formal adoption of the agenda. I've had nothing brought forward, so at this moment, certainly I would entertain a motion on this item.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and second to formally adopt the agenda. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item on the agenda are the minutes of April 6, 2015, regular meeting minutes. If there are questions or comments. If not, I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the April 6, 2015 regular meeting minutes. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item are the minutes of the April 8th, 2015 special meeting minutes. Certainly I would open up to questions or comments.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the April 8th, 2015 special meeting minutes. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Abstain.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item, under employment, Dr. Mendenhall.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, it's my pleasure tonight to bring to you three different individuals, administrators, to hire tonight and make a recommendation to you. Our first one is to make a motion that we employ an individual to serve as our Director of Transportation. As you might know, we received a retirement from Mr. David Haynes. David had been in our district for quite a few years, had started off as a bus driver and had gone through the system and actually became our Director of Transportation and has recently retired. What we did was we posted the position, and we had quite a few people that actually applied. We interviewed, a setting superintendent, actually, from a school district. We interviewed someone from Virginia. We interviewed a couple of local folks, and at the end of the day, we felt like that we found a very, very quality, good candidate. So tonight, I'm going to introduce to you and make a recommendation that we hire Mr. James McNabb. Let me kind of tell you a little bit about Mr. McNabb. He got his education, Bachelor of Arts degree from Langston University. He got his MBA from Southern Nazarene. He worked in the human resources as a manager, both at Cedent and then Client Logic, and did that from 1996 to 2004. Upon that, he became an assistant, went into the human resources area at another school district, and then wound up being an assistant transportation director at Union, and was there for 4 years. His most recent position has been the Director of Transportation for the last 7 years at Jenks Public Schools. And so we're really thrilled to have someone with that kind of experience in transportation and with a local school district. So we know that he knows about the, our school district, knows a little bit about the area, and knows that this will be a daunting task with as big as we are, but as he has said that he's up to the challenge. So it is my recommendation tonight to present to you and recommend to you Mr. James McNabb as our Transportation Director.
Are there any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to offer employment to Mr. James McNabb to serve as the Director of Transportation, with such employment subject to a mutually acceptable and fully executed written contract of employment. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes. Next item.
Mr. McNabb, would you please stand and introduce yourself? Tell us. I pretty much told them everything, but anything you'd like to add?
I do have two kiddos, both broken arrow lifers, so I'm very familiar with the district. I've been impressed by everybody that I've come in contact with. That's one of the reasons why I decided to come over. So very much looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Dr. Min, also, you can guarantee no emails or phone calls to any board members the first day of school?
I forgot to ask him that question, but maybe maybe that's the next
Could have
thing.
been a deal breaker.
He also probably didn't look that we postponed our time change too, so he'll be a part of that exciting experience next year. So our next item on the agenda is to hire a principal at Sequoia Middle School. As all of you know, Miss Cindy Williamson, that has been there for the last 5 years, has chosen to move and go back to Atlanta, Georgia to be with her family. She is retiring from the state and will go do that. And we're very, very saddened by her departure, but we know that we had to look for another candidate, someone that would lead the Sequoia Middle School. We too did a committee. The committee did a great job. The parents, the staff, and then also some administration were a part of that committee and really were able to interview some really quality candidates. Narrowed it to 2 people and then wound up making a final recommendation tonight to you. So tonight I am going to recommend to you Ms. Beth Gilbert be the principal at Sequoia Middle School. Let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Gilbert. She actually graduated, I won't tell you the year, but she graduated from Bowling Green State University. I just like saying that. You know, we don't get a whole lot of time to see him outside of Oklahoma State or you. So, she also graduated with a Master's of Educational Administration from Oklahoma University. So she comes to us with a lot of credentials. She taught at Sequoia for 8 years. She then moved to Centennial, taught there for 6 years, has been an assistant principal both at Centennial for 2 years and then 1 year at the Freshman Academy. So tonight I recommend to you Miss Beth Gilbert as the Sequoia Middle School principal.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to offer employment to Beth Gilbert to serve as the principal at Sequoia Middle School, with such employment subject to a mutually acceptable and fully executed written contract of employment. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Miss Gilbert, can you please stand and tell us? It's not early childhood, it's middle school.
She took me off there before I voted.
I just want to say how honored I am. I would like to take a minute and introduce my family.
Great, that'd be fantastic.
My husband Mark, our son and daughter-in-law, Tyler and Leah Gilbert, and the cutest granddaughter in the whole world that belongs to them, Colin Gilbert. Our daughter and son-in-law, Stephen and Megan Halbaugh, all are Broken Arrow grads, and actually Tyler and Megan graduated from Sequoia Middle School also. So I kind of feel like I'm going back to a place that's really dear to me. I can see so many faces in the room of people who have supported and encouraged me and who've taken care of my kids while they were going through Broken Arrow schools, and I do appreciate you so much. I'm going to miss my Broken Arrow Freshman Academy family, but to my Sequoia family, I love you already. Let's get this thing started.
I think I still have my credentialing. I'm going to apply for a job now at Sequoia.
Sure.
I'm very excited to have Miss Gilbert. She is such a breath of fresh air, and just really excited about having her there. Our next item on the agenda is item number 9. It's to discuss motion and vote to offer employment for the principal at Liberty Elementary. I would like to first let you know, Miss Karen Gates, I know that most of you knew this, that Karen Gates has chosen to retire. I believe Miss Gates has been, in the district. Miss Gates, where are you? I just want to, how long have you been in the district?
37 years.
Okay, and that's... And this is a part of the agenda, so I can do this. So tell me, where all have you been, Miss Gates? Where have you been? Not as a principal, let's do it that way. As an assistant principal and a principal.
As an assistant principal, I was at Southside, at Spring Creek, Arrowhead, Park Lane, and as principal at Rhodes and at Liberty. Before that, I taught at Indian Springs and Haskell at an elementary school.
Wow. So, we are really, I always say this, we don't really replace people like that. We basically fill their position, but it's hard to replace that that knowledge and wisdom that you bring to us. So we're really, really happy for you, and I know that you can't wait to go be a grandma too, and so really glad for you on that. So, getting to the item on the agenda, I apologize, board, for me to kind of go off in the weeds there, but I wanted to at least let you know about Miss Gates. We are really kind of going through the same kind of process. You've noticed that we've done a lot of committees, and we did the same thing with this. We actually went through a committee process. They narrowed it to 2 individuals that were then sent to me. And very happy tonight to recommend to you tonight Miss Alora Orr for the position at Liberty Elementary. I will just say elementary people do that. That's why I go there as often as I can. I get applause whether I deserve it or not. Let me tell you about Miss Orr, and kind of, she's also kind of a lifer here in Broken Arrow. She's spent a lot of her time here, both as a classroom teacher and administrator and counselor. She received her undergrad degree at Oklahoma State University, and then went on to Northeastern State, received a master's in science or of counseling psychology, and then also administration. So she really has both masters from Northeastern State. She was a classroom teacher for many, many years, moved into a counseling position. She was a counselor at Sequoia Middle School, Arrowhead Elementary, and Country Line Primary before she began the process of applying for administrative positions, and has been an assistant principal for the last 3 years. The interesting thing about being an elementary principal is that we move you a lot, and so you get a chance to really experience administration from different perspectives. She started out actually at Arrowhead and spent some time there, went to Aspen Creek her second year, and then this last year she spent with Miss Gates at Liberty. So comes with a lot of great experiences. So tonight I officially recommend to you Miss Alora Orr as the principal of Liberty Elementary.
Any questions or comments?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to offer employment to Alora Orr to serve as the principal at Liberty Elementary School with such employment subject to a mutually acceptable and fully executed written contract of employment. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Miss Orr, would you please stand? Could you introduce your good-looking family?
This is my husband Derek, and my son Hayden. He's at Country Lane Intermediate, and my daughter Abigail, who's at Country Lane Primary. And kind of following what Beth said, I could not do without these guys. They are my rock. I did choose to fill with Kate leaving. I know they love her, and I will let you guys down. I love you all, so I am so thrilled and honored.
Glad to have you.
Next item on the agenda are the comments from the public. Seeing that we do not have any, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the general consent agenda items 11 through 46. There has not been any of the items brought to my attention prior to the board meeting, so I certainly would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the general consent agenda items 11 through 46. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Majors,
Yes.
Mr. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Kelly.
Yes.
Where y'all going? Golly.
Next item on the agenda is the Superintendent Board of Education Communications, and has to do with the legislative update. Dr. Mendenhall.
Yes, good evening. I wanted to just kind of bring to your attention a few of the different bills that have been either passed or maybe on the floor at this point in time in both the House and the Senate. There have been bills that have been passed and actually sitting on the governor's desk. Do not forget that we have, I'm so sorry, I'm going too fast. The first thing is to make sure that you remember that bills will be considered dormant if not heard on the House or Senate floors by April 23rd. So we're getting closer and closer to that time when the session is up. We actually had a great opportunity last week. I believe that Ms. Kelly, the board president, myself, and some other community members traveled to Oklahoma City with the chamber. And we're able to really speak to a lot of the legislators, our local legislators, and they're really trying to be responsive to the concerns and ideas that are brought their way. So do appreciate the local legislators that we do have. I know that we we tend to get on their case quite a bit, but I will tell you that we have some. Michael Rogers, I believe, is new to the House of Representatives, and I believe we have others like Nathan Dahm, Senator Dahm, also Brumbaugh, Representative Brumbaugh. Just mentioning a few people just because they actually show up to some of these events, and I do appreciate their being interested, but also the candor that they present when they're there. Senate Bill 20 was one of the bills that I wanted to just touch on. This is a teacher recruitment bill. This was covered, in the March board meeting, I believe by Ms. Wellborn at that time. It allows teachers for out of state with 5 years teaching experience to teach in Oklahoma in the same subject area grade level for which they hold out of state certificate. So when you think about that, that's a pretty big deal to be able to become certified. I will say this, our certification process here in Oklahoma is as stringent as most, probably more stringent than most, I guess, than other states. So this was a big deal. It is on the governor's desk, and believe it is either, if it has not been signed, will be signed soon. The next one I want to bring your attention to is Senate Bill number 68. Charter school bill. This was covered also in our last board meeting. This bill was authorizing a city to sponsor a charter school. The thing about this is, and for me to be clear, charters aren't a negative thing. I mean, they can have some really positive things that we can have out of a charter school. The disagreement I would have with a bill of this nature is that the chartering or the authorizing sponsor would be the city. And, really, I believe it's really should be a school board or a board of education that would be the authoritative board that would authorize things. So that would be a problem for us. This bill did not make it out of the House Common Education Committee, but I do know that it is still out there as of even today. There was still some more talk and discussion. There's really two charter bills. I think there's another one on the next slide. Actually, it's two charter bills. One gives a lot of flexibility to us that we really feel like that if we're going to have charters, we need to have. This particular charter was not as flexible and also had a authorizing board that was other than a school board. House Bill 1521. This was by Representative Hinkie, which is here in Tulsa. It was a teacher pay. We have given stipends, I believe, to our teachers the last 4 years, a one-time incentive stipend. This bill was passed that states, and actually will go into effect effective November 1. It has been signed and placed into law. We will no longer have to do extra duty for the one-time stipend. So at the end of the year, remember that we would always, if we were going to give a returning stipend, we would have to go a half a day, do some type of professional development. We're able not to, with this bill, which is a positive, has caused us to kind of think how we're going to do that and really make it easier for us to give a stipend without requiring teachers or staff to do extra. The next bill wanted to say something to you about is Senate Bill 782. This is the charter bill that I was talking about a while ago. This would allow school boards to determine whether or not a charter can be established. The local school board would also have the authority to convert a local school site to a charter school and provide governorship over that. So when you look at it, it's really providing more opportunity for students and for schools to become charters if need be. So this has been what we're afraid of is I think there's going to be some language from both charter bills that will be embedded into each other. And what will happen is there's probably some negative things. For instance, the governing board might be a city instead of a local school board. So hopefully we'll work through that as we see it. The last one is teacher retirement system. Senate Bill 454. This is a bill by Senator Ford out of Bartlesville. This is removing the earnings cap for retired teachers under the teacher retirement system. Would provide incentive for retirees who might be interested in re-entering the classroom, helping to alleviate some of the teacher shortage problems. I see this as a positive. I feel like that this is something that really could help us. It was approved by the Senate Pensions Committee, and even though there's a lot of discussion about this, I believe that it really has legs and probably will come back. They have kind of postponed it at this point, but felt like that it's probably something that we need to look at into the future. I always feel guilty, and you know, Ms. Welborn and I talk about the bills to kind of cover in here. There's so many. There's still a lot of things that were happening even as of today that I didn't even bring up. But I will tell you that I do feel like that we're on the right track with some of the things. I think our charter bill is probably the thing that we need to look out for, is probably our biggest one at this point. I'll answer any question that you might have. I know that there may be things that I didn't cover, or a bill that maybe you have or have heard of that maybe you want to mention during this time.
I just wanted to make a comment of clarification, certainly, and you certainly would know, but currently teachers have to stay out 36 months before they can re-enter and gain full, if they want to negotiate with the district, and gain a full compensation as it relates to the comp schedule or something of that sort. And so under this new provision, the reason it's being moved to the committee is because it has a financial impact. So anything that has a financial impact, they can't enact in that year. They've got to move it to the next year. And so my question here is, under this, would that mean then that the person would be able to re-enter within 60 to 90 days? Because I've heard 60 and I've heard 90, and I didn't know whether you had heard one or the other.
And Mr. Thompson might know more than I do. I don't know.
I don't know the exact time. I think it's so you could leave at the end of 1 year and start the next. So I actually think it's 90 days, but that would fit the window of time that you'd be ending in May and start in August. So you'd actually have that 3-month window, so it's just a normal transition.
Okay.
I mean, they're trying to do everything they can to get more retirees to return back to the classroom if at all possible, just to cover the shortage.
Yeah, they continue to talk about, we've all talked about the potential of 1,000 teacher shortage. I think this is one of their ideas of maybe helping.
Any other questions?
Dr. Minhall, at last week's OSSBA region meeting we had many representatives there, which was nice, and they were pretty honest. I mean, it was
Really
nice to
nice.
see them there talking about education. Has there been any more talk? What is it? Stan Lewinsky talking about the high stakes testing and where that's at being addressed. I know it's been a hot topic, but year after year with end of year exams and high stakes testing, but haven't seen anything bills or anything that's passed or moving forward to be passed?
You know, one of the biggest ones is the end of instruction. They've talked a lot about EOIs and what would replace end of instruction. There are two bills that are still alive. One is replacing the EOIs with the ACT, which, you know, is a test that actually has been tried and true for many, many years. There's also one that's out there, I think it was the ITBS, which has been given for many, many years as well as a potential replacement. I think that's going to really, I think we're probably, you know, kind of taking a positive approach tonight. I think we're on the right track with that. I do think that the EOIs really don't mean anything to the student other than, yes, I've got to pass 4 out of 7, and I've got to pass Algebra 1 and English 3 or English 2 as one of those 4 or 2 of those 4. And I think that is fine, well, fine and good on getting a high school diploma, but it doesn't help you progress in any way. It doesn't help you get into some type of technical school. It doesn't help you get into college. So we've been really hammering home the idea of changing to an ACT type of exam. The real, where the rubber will hit the road is a cut score. You know, that was mentioned, I believe, the other night when we were talking. And I think it's just like anything else. I think it's there's going to be a cut score, but I think it's also going to probably, they're looking at kind of a sliding scale. If you have a higher GPA, you could make a lower score. If you score a certain score on the PSAT, you might even have other options. So it's always a moving target. That's kind of why I didn't even bring those up, because I know that those are two that are still out there. I do think that the testing has really gotten a lot of people's attention. And I do think that parents have gotten so involved in that particular topic that it's really helped us kind of move some of this stuff or kick the can down the road a little bit. So it's a very, very good, it's been good conversation. You mentioned something else, Mr. Allen. Was there?
It was the high stakes testing,
Okay.
because, you know, it's been kind of a hot topic the last 2 years. I mean, I know it's been a hot topic for many years, but here recently in the last 2 years, because it seemed like in legislation they passed the school grading system, all of a sudden, boom, it came down the road, it passed, this is what we're going with, but it seems like it's lagging in anything to be done to kind of address the high stakes testing that's going on in our districts.
I'm going to ask Dr. Dunlop to add something, but before she does, it's interesting, the ESEA, which is the federal legislation, that it was the No Child Left Behind Act. Before that, it was a Nation at Risk. There was a lot of things that it has not been reauthorized. That's why we have what's called a state waiver away from NCLB. I'm getting a lot of information about that they're getting closer and closer at the federal level of reauthorizing this act, which could really help us because they're going to wind up pushing everything back to the state level, and the federal level will stay away from getting into the state's rights for education. So I think that's a very interesting deal. I do think that because of the ramping up for the presidency, et cetera, that we may see that this gets signed before there's a changeover in the presidency. So just wanted to mention that, because always remember, I mean, I know a lot of us that took these classes know that it was always intended to be a state's right to really govern, and local school districts were supposed to govern public education. It was never meant to have a federal oversight. So kind of interesting concept. Dr. Dunlop?
As Dr. Mendenhall said, that's correct. The ESEA is up for renewal. And basically what that would do is it would push the entire concept of AYP back to the state to
to govern whether schools are making progress or not, which is an interesting concept. But as far as just locally what's going on with our high-stakes testing, Stanislawski's and J.D. Nolan's legislation is still out there. And of course, Stanislawski states that we will have a nationally normed or a nationally recognized test in place of the EOIs. That's still out there. It has not gone to the full floor yet. However, it's still waiting to be heard. Same thing for J.D. Nolan's bill. And J.D. Nolan's bill doesn't necessarily name the ACT either. It just states that there are many different options for seniors to meet that requirement for ACE legislation. And some of them that she mentions are specifically making a cut score on a nationally normed test, having a national certification or an industry certification that's recognized through our local career tech, and then finally making a qualifying ASVAB score to be recognized into any of the military branches. So again, both of those pieces of legislation are still out there waiting to be heard on the full floor.
Dr. Dunlop, in relation to those that you attend the hearings and you're there lobbying, I would expect that there might be one favored over the other. Could you speak to that?
It seems like Stanislawski's bill is getting a little bit more traction, maybe just because he's recognized more of having more of a leadership role in the past. But you never know. You never know what's going to happen once they're heard on the floor. So personally, I would like to see J.D. Nolan's bill also get some traction just because it seems to recognize the multiple paths that our students may choose. Not every student chooses to go to college. Many of our students choose to go to a military branch or to go to into a career tech field, and all of those are recognized as equal options for our students and should be.
And my big concern too is and I think it's Stanislawski, he's kind of, he doesn't want to do the ACT because it's criterion. So that's kind of the other thing that's really, we're getting close, really close, and then we have someone that has a lot of clout in the legislature, and that becomes a problem. Could you talk to about RSA? Breeding Sufficiency Act is probably the other thing that's really been discussed quite a bit lately.
And I'm going to probably confuse who the authors are on this bill, so I'm just going to talk about the bills that I know of that are out there. One specifically is to continue the committee for the RSA students. So if a student does not need proficiency at third grade, instead of waiting until third grade, we're able to create the committee as early as first grade. And honestly, this is a great idea. However, we have to fully fund it. We haven't even fully funded RSA yet, so how in the world are we going to fully fund it all the way to first grade? So if we get the full funding for RSA, we are always supporting and intervening in first grade. That's why we have reading recovery here in our district. Another one is specifically addressing the assessment to identify students for RSA. Currently, we've been using the third grade reading. We call it the reading test, but it's really an English language arts test. And so this piece of legislation is asking specifically that we use a reading test for that. I believe that was Inky's bill. Those are the two that are right at the top of my mind right now. So we have a little bit of movement going on with RSA as well.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item under operations, Ms. Michelle Bergwall.
Good evening, President Kelly, Dr. Mendenhall, members of the board. Tonight I bring before you a donation from our class of 1974. I believe our acting city manager is here, Russell Gale. He's brought some members of the class of 74. Russell, would you want to come up? I think you've even got the plaques with you, don't you? As some of you may know, we have in the district the only building on the National Historical Registry, and that's our Central on Main facility. The class of 1974 has stepped up and said, you know, we really need to mark that and make that recognition. And so they are asking tonight that you accept the donation of the plaques, of both to commemorate that building as on the registry and the class of 74. Do you want to read what those plaques show?
Yes. Thank you for having us. Is this the top one? I can't remember.
Yes.
Thank you. It states, on this site, the first Broken Arrow Public School structure was built in 1904. From Indian Territory and statehood to present day, may this building serve as an enduring reminder of our rich educational history to all that have passed or will pass through these doors, presented by Broken Arrow High School class of 1974. And this one states, this property has been placed on the National Register of Historical Places by the United States Department of Interior.
Wow.
Okay.
We're very proud to present these to the Broken Arrow Public School Board.
That is very, very nice, and I know all of the people that have the rich history here in the district appreciate very much this donation and commemoration, and it will be aptly placed in the appropriate location. Any other comments or questions?
Could you just tell us how it got you? Class of 1974, how did that play out? How did you guys?
Well,
first off, you don't look like a class of 1974. You look like you graduated maybe 94, you know.
Thank you. We checked and made sure we actually all did graduate. But I think this was a program that actually started about 10 years ago when Donna Baldwin, who's sitting back in the back, worked for the Broken Arrow Chamber, and she started thinking about recognizing the Central Middle School since it is I think the only building in Broken Arrow presently that's on the National Historical Register. And funding came from our 40th reunion program, which we had this past summer, and we all agreed that instead of having steak, we'd all have the little Smokies. I'm kidding, we didn't.
That's good.
So it just kind of evolved into
That's great.
recognizing that. We believe that maintaining that rich tradition and history is important, and we do see the value in Central Middle School. And interestingly, Roger's the only one that actually went to school there. So I think Donna went to Sequoia, and I moved here my sophomore year. So, but
Right.
we do know and appreciate maintaining that building and the importance that it brings to the community.
We thank you a lot. That's
Thank you for
very
having
nice.
us.
Very kind.
These are very heavy.
I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the donation and display of 2 plaques at Central on Main presented by the Broken Arrow High School class of 1974 to commemorate the historical significance of Central Middle School. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Our next one is also a donation. This one is from the Williams Company. Williams, as you may have heard in the news, is going through some downsizing, and they contacted us with some filing cabinets, lateral files, task chairs, and what have you. Wondered if we were wanting to accept the donation, and we went and looked at them. They're actually fairly new cabinets and furniture. We know that a lot of our classrooms could use some lateral files and some filing cabinets. We've got so many pieces of furniture in the district that are 30 plus years old, and these are probably 5 to 10 years old. They also match the new stuff that we've been purchasing in the school. Some of them match the new, and some of them match some of the older stuff that was purchased. None of them are the harvest green or the avocado green or harvest gold. So we would like to accept that donation where we can distribute that furniture to sites.
Recommend approval.
Okay.
Second.
Okay,
Go
we
ahead
have
and
a
ask your
motion and a
question.
second. No, that's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Motion and second, and I have a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So in relation to the stuff that is donated, once it is donated, I guess we've identified locations already that might
We have
benefit.
locations for some of the items. We felt like once we got the donation and acquired it, got it back to our warehouse and went through all of it, we looked at it in their warehouse. It looks like it's in great shape, but we may find a piece or two that's not. We're also not taking everything that they had in their warehouse, really just the pieces that we feel like are commonly used. We've already identified where some of the task chairs will go, and then we'll ask the sites what their needs are. We also have, a constant requests for different furniture, and we know where those requests and which sites those are from, and we'll fill those first.
Okay, thank you. We do have a motion and second. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
Well, it is time for summer projects. We've got a special education remodel at the high school. This will address the bathrooms that our multi-handicap students and our level 3 autism students use there in building A of the high school. We received bids on that, and we would like to award that contract to BOE Construction.
I have a quick question. It appears that we're getting some other companies bid the work,
Yes.
which is a good thing.
It is. It is a
Yes.
good thing, and we kind of went through a famine there when the economy had fallen, and we didn't have a lot of the small contracts able to bid us, and we're starting to see some different names.
Okay. Any other questions?
I also want to just make, before you vote, I want to make a comment about, this was actually, we have a special education parent committee that helped with planning of this. And so I appreciate, I think Ms. Grubin and Ms. Coster and Ms. Bergwell, all three have spent some time with them and really worked hard to make this all happen. So I think a lot of credit goes to them for the work with the parents that actually worked through this. So just wanted you to know that.
Thank you. I would entertain a motion.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to award a general construction contract for the Broken Arrow High School Special Education Room renovations to the lowest responsible bidder, BOE Construction LLC, in the amount of $74,386. The bidding was conducted pursuant to the Oklahoma Competitive Bidding Act, and payment will be made from the 2009 bond fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The next one is a contract to make some renovations at our multipurpose facility. Now that we have moved the weight room into the indoor complex, now that leaves the old weight room where we need to do something with it and make it more usable space. And the proposal is to turn that into a larger training room with a couple of offices. It also gives us some millwork for all of the amenities that they need, as well as the booster club as they feed the football students. So it gives them some space to make those accommodations. And we received 5 bids on this work. We were pleased with that, and we were able to accept both the alternates, which was the millwork and cabinetry associated with the remodel, and we ask for your approval tonight.
Okay. Any questions on this?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to award a general construction contract for the multipurpose facility training room renovations at the high school campus to the lowest responsible bidder. Say the word there. MJ.
Imaginus.
Imaginus. Okay, thank you. Inc. of Broken Arrow in the amount of $152,469.28. The bidding was conducted pursuant to the Oklahoma Competitive Bidding Act, and payment will be made from the 2009 bond fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The next item we have is a small renovation to the Westwood facility to accommodate the Air Force National Defense Cadet Corps unit. This will allow us to put in an overhead door to allow track to have the space that they need to store their items straight off the field, and moves them over so that we can have the classrooms for the NDCC program as well as the office and collaboration space that they need. Our maintenance department has worked really hard out of this facility. They completed the demo of the restrooms and some of the other select demo that needs to be done. As JEI builds back the office and classroom spaces and hangs the overhead door, our maintenance department will be completing the plumbing, electrical, and HVAC work that is required to make this renovation possible.
Okay. Any questions? I would entertain a motion.
Was there 2 bids on that, or was there 1?
There were the 2 bids,
Okay.
the JEI and Nabholz. Actually, I
Okay.
think there was a third. No, just the 2, Nabholz and JEI.
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the renovations at Westwood Building located on the high school campus for the Air Force National Defense Cadet Corps Unit NDCC program in the amount of $37,113 from the lowest responsible vendor, Joseph Enterprises, Inc., with payment from the 2009 bond fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kelly, can I ask Ms. Burwell a question on that? Is,
Yes.
I know some of these names are different than we've seen on,
Yeah.
why is
Well,
just this small of a project? Is that
I
what it
think
is?
this small of a project, Imaginus, to our understanding, is a fairly new company, as well as BOE. BOE that you saw as one of the bidders, they actually renovated Central on Main, I think Phase 5 when I first got here. So a couple of them we're familiar with. Nabholz, JEI does quite a bit of work for us, but Imaginus and BOE are the newest contractors that we're seeing.
But I guess through our contracts with Nabholz, we probably wouldn't see that because it was through Nabholz and their subcontractors.
Right, and Nabholz has worked for us as a construction
Right.
manager, but now they have a new client services division that's
Oh,
actually
okay.
bidding some smaller work for them.
Oh.
Thank you. Next item, that's Mr. Grant Moore.
Good evening. I'm here asking your approval for the purchase of 600 sets of student furniture, that's a desk and a chair, to be used by the district for growth and for replacement throughout the district, from Thompson's Educational Furnishings in the amount of $70,822 with payment from maintenance bond funds.
I have a question. So if we're looking at $70,822, the expectation would be, if we're looking at a building, for instance, are we looking at multiple buildings? Are we looking at one building potentially this addressing? Could you kind of share a little bit to that end?
Okay, it'll address multiple buildings. 400 of the sets are for elementary size students and 200 for secondary size students. We're just trying to figure out exactly where the growth's going to be and handle the growth first and then handle replacements.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the purchase of student furniture for population growth and replacement district-wide in the amount of $70,822 from Thompson Educational Furnishings with payment from maintenance bond funds. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item under instructional services, Mr. Lance Crawley.
Good evening, Dr. Mendenhall, President Kelly, members of the board. Thought I'd come to you with an informational item only to present the annual dropout and remediation reports. We'll start off with the data from the dropout. I took the liberty of changing the format. The state provides that in a rather generic one line, just very much like you'll see on the remediation report. So I captured data from the last four school years that we had and put that into a chart that we can follow over time. As you all can see, if you go from 2010-11 with a number of 114 to now 2013-14, we've seen a steady decline in that number. I think in the short time that I've been here, I can attribute those to two things specifically. One, just last March, I sat in the back of the room as Principal Linwood and kind of thought when Dr. Mendenhall talked about his leg goals, literacy, engagement, graduation, and he said very straight-facedly, 100% graduates. That's what he wants. And if you've ever been at the secondary level and dealt with some of the kids, that was intimidating, but as Principal Linwood, I just kind of chuckled and said, oh, hopefully I can be a part of that and I can do some things with my students here. But now as secondary director, it takes on a whole different responsibility. So just another example, God has a great sense of humor, and pay attention when you're sitting in the back of the room. So there's a couple lessons there for you. I'm working with Mark Fry on my stand-up routine, so if anything doesn't go well tonight, where he was over there. So
I struggle too, so
yeah.
I will make sure I laugh.
It's late, and I'm following some of the things. But anyways, that's a state. And the second piece there, I think that the WAVE is doing a better job of recapturing students when we lose them for a period of time and go elsewhere. So that date, I think, every year gets better and better. And so hopefully we'll see that trend continue to go down with those two items. Entertain any questions on the dropout report?
I do have a question,
Okay.
because I'm looking at the dropout data that you've pulled, and I'm looking at the free and reduced, and the increase in the free and reduced from 39% in 2010 to 42% currently. And I guess my question is, from a state perspective and from a lobbying perspective, certainly we work as a team, as leadership when we talk to our legislators, but I'm not so certain that our legislators understand to the degree that our free and reduced numbers are increasing in this state, and how it's impacting our schools, and how the budget is not keeping in concert with this increase. So I don't know, I'm kind of editorializing at the same time, but could you give me kind of your feel on that, and maybe I know that you all at times have conversations around that, and what you think about that number increasing and how that's going to challenge us.
Okay. Certainly, I know that the data is out there for our legislators in terms of that gap between the median income in the state of Oklahoma and poverty. And I can't, standing here, but those numbers are really, really close. So we have more and more Oklahomans as time goes on living in poverty. And so that's going to continue to impact us as a district. Again, I know as a principal last semester, some of the housing prices in Broken Arrow can become more attractive to people in Tulsa County, and they were moving to our district specifically for the quality of our school system. A lot of the new students I had, they weren't new to Oklahoma, they weren't new to the state or from the other side. They were coming from neighboring districts because of the quality of education, and the housing gap was becoming where they could afford. So I think there's a duplicate there. As the economy maybe flattens out, we're seeing some opportunities for prices for those families to move in as well.
I think that's going to continue to challenge all schools throughout the state, and certainly I'm not just saying that we as Oklahomans are impacted by that, but throughout the nation. That number continues to increase.
And as the federal government at least continues to play a role and help us in funding those students, I think if that role ever dramatically reduced, then that could play a huge impact. Okay.
Also, one other comment I want to make. I want to compliment everyone in the district who has had a role to play in addressing the dropout, because that takes a lot of work and a lot of conversations. And I think the other thing that it says is that we're working collaboratively as a school team to ensure that we're best representing our students, and we're addressing these issues. As challenging as they are, we continue to do that, and I'm very appreciative, certainly as a board member, and certainly for the students that we serve. It says a lot about our school community, and again, I appreciate everyone who's a part of that.
Okay. If the board ever had that desire, I could present all the other options that we now present to high school students other than the typical brick and mortar high school campus. And it's almost exhausting to look back and think about, wow, how did all these things come about and what was the impetus for them? But there are lots and lots of really solid paths for students that may be struggling in the current system. So I think that's a credit to the board and the folks in the room. Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the second piece, the remediation information. And again, we're only as good as the data, and as you guys can see, this is from 2012. And so I am going to take the liberty of passing out a piece of paper that at least I've recaptured 2 years of data, as opposed to just the one that you're given in this document that's on the screen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 years doesn't do a whole lot more, but it does give us the beginning of a trend. And as we are still 3 years behind, and I think that a lot of that's because the state doesn't have so much success in putting pressure on the state universities to get this information and timely data, because it combines our graduation information, our numbers of graduates, with information from the state colleges and universities. So that's probably why it takes so long to get it out there. I'll say that Dr. Mendenhall said we were going to take the positive track tonight, so I'm going to stay on that bend there. I think the most interesting comparison as you look at the data is between us and Union. because they have the similar number. We way outpace all the other schools in the number of graduates that we're sending on to public colleges. And if you follow that data across, although I wouldn't say we're significantly lower in the number of students that we're providing remediation to, we are lower, but we are, when you look at the first column of numbers, sending a lot more students to colleges and universities than other schools. So I think that's really positive. Entertain any questions?
You know, I know one thing too, and I only throw this out just for conversation, but demographically we're unique compared to all of the other schools here as well. So if we look apples to apples, we're similar in our numbers, but demographically we may be quite different
Sure.
than the other schools around us. But that doesn't negate the hard work that our educators do, that our administration does, and certainly our support employees do. And so this is very good to look at the data and really try to extrapolate what we need to extrapolate in order to have the next steps and the conversations that are necessary. So I appreciate it very much.
Okay, and as you can see in 2012, all our numbers did reduce in a positive way. I believe all. So let me look at that. But yeah, so we are seeing reductions. Just wish we could get this a little more timely, but continue to present each year as we get it.
Yes, and again, I appreciate the information. Like I say, you know, you have to have a starting point. So this is very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item under Business Services, Ms. Natalie Ena.
Get us everything.
Good evening. These are the monthly financials through the end of March 2015. As you can see, we've received approximately 72% of our state aid allocation. Our initial allocation, or excuse me, adjusted midterm allocation was $46.9 million. The only other thing to really point out with general fund is you'll notice that our federal sources of revenue have decreased about $800,000 from where we were in comparison last year, and this is due to there being some logistical issues with our Title I application and budget being approved timely at the State Department. That has since been resolved, and our claims have payments have started to be received. So you should see an adjustment in that figure next month. Our ad valorem continues to come in. We did receive one final sizable payment in April, and you'll see those numbers kind of finish out in next month's report as well. Building fund, again, our ad valorem number will be adjusted. The rest of the revenue really lies in the local other collections for our miscellaneous refunds and rebates from PSO. Child nutrition, really all of our collections in this fund have increased due to increased students, more participation across campuses, and the programming that our child nutrition department offers all students that have taken advantage of that. General fund expenditures, our workers' comp expense is reflected in the 900 series. That's a difference that I continue to point out to the board each month, because I think it's important to realize that as we are self-insured, we do have to set aside and encumber those funds, pay them out of general fund, and transfer them to our self-insured fund 83. Really everything else is pretty much on track with our salaries and benefits pretty much staying comparable to where we were at this time last year. Building fund, as our 2009 bond funds have pretty much dwindled down, we're now relying on our building fund much more heavily to kind of get us through our day-to-day operations and pick up some of those things that our bond allocations were picking up. So that's putting a little bit more stress on this fund as in some of our supplies, maintenance, and things like that. Child nutrition, you can see our food expenditures have increased slightly from where we were last year. Ms. Goodacre has also bought ahead as well as prepared for some of the summer feeding programs and summer schools. So that expenditure category is heightened a little bit from where we were last year. Child Nutrition Fund also paid for the construction of the student union and remodeling of the cafeteria. So that was a one-time expense to get that fund balance back in accordance with state guidelines, and they are picking up their own workers' comp expense as well and transferring it to our self-insured fund. And the April 1 spending cutoff has come and gone for the district, and as we're now really in the final months of winding down our fiscal year, we expect to be at 14% of our ending fund balance, and really now just approving RQs that are deemed an emergency or needed for the operation of our summer programs.
On the fund balance, I know that there's a projection here that it'd be at 14%, but just looking at the budget report itself and the actual versus, you know, what was projected, there is a potential that it could go slightly higher, isn't there?
There's always that potential. I mean, as we continue to close out encumbrances and close out POs, there is room for fluctuations and variations in that.
I keep noticing that we're doing a really good job of, ensuring the budget. I'm watching it very carefully, and it looks like there is a potential, and I know there's always a potential that it go the other direction too. So I appreciate your answer. Next item, Ms. Donna Dollahan.
Good evening. My first item for you tonight is the activity fund reports at the end of March. Receipts total $4,794,000. The disbursements total $4,248,000, with an ending cash balance in the activity funds of $2,548,000.
Any questions? Okay.
My next item is a one-to-one sub-account is requested for the Broken Arrow Freshman Academy Activity Fund. This account is needed to accommodate expenses and revenue for the new one-to-one pilot program for the Freshman Academy. We request your approval of this sub-account and the guidelines.
I do have one question. It says that there's expenditure approved under that column. It says incentives and awards for students. Do we have any idea about what we might be talking about on the awards and incentives?
I would have to defer that to Mrs. Coates,
That'd
who
be
is
fine.
not here tonight.
That's
I can
fine.
email
And then you
you.
can just let me know.
Okay.
Yes, that's wonderful.
Says rewards.
Yeah, it says, well, that's
Yeah.
correct. Anyway, it says it's incentives and rewards.
Rewards,
It
I
should
believe
say
that should be awards.
awards, yeah. That's probably what I was.
I will correct that.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item.
This was a motion item.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. I just jumped ahead again. I apologize to you. I would entertain a motion.
recommend approval.
We have a motion and second to approve the addition of one-to-one sub-account and guidelines for Broken Arrow Freshman Academy Activity Fund. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
My next item is the treasurer's report as of the end of March. Cash balances report shows a total of $48,498,000 is in assets for the district. In this total includes $39,540,000 in investments. The fund security and deposit report shows a total of $79,180,000 in collateral pledged to Broken Arrow schools. Our total deposits requiring collateral are $36,496,000, leaving an available balance of collateral in the amount of $42,691,000.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Ms. Kathy Metavallis.
Good evening. The first item tonight are the encumbrance reports. We have encumbrance orders for your review tonight totaling $1,145,464.32. And those run from April 2nd to April 23rd, 2015. I would request your approval on those.
Any questions on these?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the encumbrance reports for all funds for 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Next item.
The change order reports show a decrease of $759,922.92. Same period of time, April 2nd through April 23rd, and I would request your approval of those change orders.
Okay. Any questions on these?
Recommend approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second to approve the change order reports for general fund, cooperative fund, building fund, workers' compensation, bond funds, skip funds, and child nutrition fund for the 2014-15 fiscal year. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is new business. Seeing that we do not have any new business, we'll move to the next item, which is the executive session.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
Second.
We have a motion and second to move to executive session, to enter into executive session to discuss negotiations process for the 2015-16 school year with the school board members and to authorize the chief financial officer to begin the process pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B2, and to discuss the appraisal of real property pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B3. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. I would entertain a motion to come out of executive session.
I make a motion to move into move out of executive session, pardon me.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move out of executive session. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes. Would the deputy clerk please read the minutes?
The Board of Education and Dr. Mendenhall, Dwayne Thompson, and Michelle Bergwell entered into executive session at 7:16 p.m. to discuss the negotiation process for the 2015-16 school year with the school board members and to authorize the chief financial officer to begin the process pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B2, and to discuss the appraisal of real property pursuant to Oklahoma Statute Title 25, Section 307B3. Board of Education returned to open session at 9:36 p.m. This constitutes the minutes of the executive session.
All right. The next item on the agenda is to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and second to adjourn. Please call the roll.
Dr. Williamson? Yes. Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Kelly?
Yes.